Welcome back to The Lead. The Democratic Alliance has approached vaccine suppliers to consider working with either private entities or provincial governments to speed up the rollout. Party leader John Steenhuisen briefed the public on government's response to COVID-19 earlier today. He believes that government has failed in the rollout and in saving lives. He joins us now live from Cape Town. Mr. Steenhuisen, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the show. First of all, maybe give us the DA's reaction to the Constitutional Court judgment today.
Well, I think it's a great judgment that's been handed down, and I think it's very good that the citizens of South Africa know that no matter how corrupt politicians are, no matter how powerful they may seem, that the rule of law does apply in South Africa, and it doesn't matter whether you're an ordinary citizen or whether you're a former president of the Republic, the law applies to you equally. So I sincerely hope Mr. Zuma will hand himself over and serve his sentence, and that he would urge restraint on his followers to ensure that the rule of law is upheld in South Africa. This is precisely what the framers of the Constitution intended, how the Constitution should work. And I think the judgment of the court today has once again proven that the rule of law is alive and well in South Africa.
Yeah. All right. So you have announced today that you have written to major vaccine suppliers that are approved by SAHPRA. Who are they, and what do you want them to do?
Well, we've written to all of the companies that have received the registration from SAHPRA, and what we're urging them to do is, given the pandemic crisis that we're facing in South Africa, is to decentralize the ability for people to be able to purchase the vaccine. So in other words, to allow private sector industry players as well as competent provincial governments to be able to procure the vaccine. It's very, very clear that governments dropped the ball here, and what we need now is to get jabs and arms. That's all that's going to make the difference going forward, or we're going to be landed with the fourth and potentially fifth wave down the line. It shouldn't matter where the jabs are coming from. It shouldn't matter who's administering them. We just need to make sure that we start to reach those critical numbers, which we're simply not able to do under government's current regime.
Yeah. Are you not going to face some limitations in terms of what the national approach is and what the policy says? I remember previously, I think government has indicated it won't be necessarily easy or even possible for provincial governments to purchase their own vaccines. Have you looked at those limitations? Do they exist, or can you actually deal directly with the vaccine manufacturers?
Well, I think that the time has passed now for government to continue to hold a complete monopoly. If the program was working and there were vaccines and we were vaccinating at the rate we required to save lives, but also to keep the economy open and save livelihoods, it's another story altogether. Government has failed completely. The president has misled the nation right from the beginning about the number of vaccines, when they were arriving, and how fast they were going to be rolled out. He promised us 300,000 a day. Over the weekend, we managed just over 24,000. If we continue at this rate, we're going to reach herd immunity in 2029. I believe that the situation is so dire now, and it poses such a clear and present danger to the lives of ordinary South Africans, but also to the viability of our economy, that the time has come now for government to relinquish the reins and allow the private sector to get involved. Wherever you go in the world where there's been a successful vaccination program, there are supermarkets that are doing the vaccines and providing them. There are pharmacies, there's hospital groups. It's a whole of society approach. We haven't had that whole of society approach here in South Africa. There are very few private vaccine sites, and where government has got vaccine sites open, they're bedeviled by the fact that there is no supply of them. So if we're going to save lives, which should be the primary focus of any government, it means that government's going to have to admit that it's dropped the ball on this, and the only way it's going to get picked up quickly is if we widen the net of availability of vaccines and who is able to roll them out.
Yeah, so if government then doesn't relinquish the reins, as you say, so your letters then to these vaccine suppliers, is it futile? Is it not possible for you to still deal directly with them if there are limitations from national government and it doesn't allow provinces to do so?
Well, I think that we have a lot of case law in South Africa, particularly if one remembers back the antiretroviral cases, that where national government and its poor policy is an impediment to saving lives, particularly of our citizens, then I believe that extraordinary measures can be entered into. I think that government would be very foolish to stop the flow of vaccines and the rollout of vaccines in South Africa, given the fact that they have clearly proven they cannot do the task, that they are simply drowning under the third wave, and it is now an emergency situation. It's all hands on deck, and they should be welcoming the fact that provinces and other medical companies and the like would want to step in and assist. It's in the interest of medical aids, it's in the interest of hospitals, it's in the interest of clinics, and it's in the interest of pharmacies, it's in the interest of all of us to make sure that as many jabs and arms are rolled out and provided, because that's the only way we're going to be able to start to return to some form of normality and to get our economic activity. If we don't have those vaccines rolled out, we're going to remain in this lockdown. We're going to keep having lockdowns which damage the economy, which drive people into the unemployment queue, and which pose a significant risk to the lives of our citizens.
Yeah.
And I believe now is the time for us as citizens to start to take action again when a government has so spectacularly failed us in this particular program.
All right, let's say the vaccine manufacturers do come to the party and release more vaccines, and you are able to deal directly with them. I mean, do you have confidence that government has the money for it, or does that not matter because this would be the provincial budget that then is responsible for purchasing these vaccines?
Well, money shouldn't be the problem. I mean, it never should have been the problem from the beginning. If you can find 150 million rand to dish out the digital vibes and 280 million to Cuban doctors, there's no reason why you shouldn't be channeling that towards vaccines. But provinces, and I know certainly the Western Cape, have provided budget for the procurement of vaccines. They announced as much several months ago that they've put aside budget for vaccine acquisition. And I think that the government should not be standing in the way of these governments from performing the very first duty that any government, whether it's local, provincial or national, should be doing, and that is to keep citizens safe. You cannot realize any one of the rights contained in the Bill of Rights if you're not alive. And keeping citizens alive has to remain one of the primary focuses of government.
All right. John Steenhuisen, thank you so much for your time. That's the DA leader chatting to us about the letter that he has written to vaccine suppliers. And they want those suppliers to intervene and start dealing directly with provinces. But the reality is there will be limitations in terms of what the approach of national government is. Will they actually allow provinces to go ahead and purchase their own vaccines? That's what we wait to see. Let's move to this now.